Bloggo's POW.
Right, this week we're going to be having a look at the Battle Arena Toshinden series of games. Starting on the PlayStation, working its way through various odd formats to where it ended up finally. So, Battle Arena Toshinden. First one was released on the PlayStation 1, a launch title in PAL and I believe US territories. All the versions came out in 1995. Now, I saw this running at the ECTS Computer Show in spring 1995, where the PlayStation had a massive stand with a huge banner covering half the back wall of Olympia. Game was running on these huge screens, and I do remember thinking how goddamn impressive it really looked. It was going to be a must-have for the PlayStation when it finally came out, and surely enough, September 1995 rolls around and I get a launch PlayStation 1 and I buy Ridge Racer, Wipeout and Battle Arena Toshinden. And I was impressed to a point. The gameplay is pretty shallow. It looks great considering the time. I mean, it looked better than the Saturn version of Virtua Fighter, for example, but there was a shadow on the horizon in the shape of Tekken. And when Tekken came out, well, Toshinden's really quite thin gameplay was sort of exposed. Anyway, I still really enjoyed it. I really liked the music, the character designs, and I had a blast playing it, and it was a really great game to play with friends. I remember having friends over to play PlayStation and always having a good time jumping in and out of the screen in Toshinden. And that was one thing that it did differently, or at least it was one of the first games to do this, to actually use the full 3D arena by diving in and out of the 3D plane. You have a nice selection of characters, ranging from your standard Ryu and Ken palette swaps in Kain and EG. You've got your female characters, you've got your tank characters, and you've got your boss character. Yeah, pretty good. Doesn't really stand up today. If you're playing it now, it's very, very basic as far as beat-em-ups go, even to the point where you can set the special moves to the shoulder buttons on the PlayStation controller, meaning there's absolutely no skill to actually pulling them off if you've done that. So yeah, it is a little bit weak. Now, it was converted, I'm jumping ahead here, onto the Saturn in 1996 and Windows PCs. The Saturn version, yeah, it's fine, but it's completely redundant because you already had Virtua Fighter 2 and before long Fighting Vipers. So yeah, not sure why they decided to release it on the Saturn. Yeah, not really worth bothering with from a Saturn point of view. A PC version, a little bit more relevant. There wasn't many fighting games on the PC, let alone 3D fighting games. I mean, God, there was FX Fighter and that was pretty poor. The PC version is notable for only one thing: the inclusion of Earthworm Jim as an unlockable boss character. This is a very odd choice. I wonder how that happened. Probably some sort of crossover, maybe Interplay published PC one. I don't know. I can't be bothered to look it up. You look it up. Also, for some reason, Toshinden was picked to be converted to Tiger's R-Zone console, which was a bit like one of those LCD handhelds, but all red for some reason. I don't know, I don't understand it at all, but yeah, there's a conversion for that nonetheless. It's very basic. So while Saturn players for some reason had Toshinden ported to the Saturn in 1996, PlayStation owners got Battle Arena Toshinden 2, which increased the graphics, increased the character roster, but the main gameplay remained the same. And again, I jumped on this because I was really enjoying the first one. Bought it on import from CEX back when they were good. The extra characters are nice, the stages look nice, the same gameplay's intact, there's not really any real change to the formula here. One thing with the sequel, which is a real nitpick, and they continued on from here onwards, was the music. In Toshinden 1, when you finish a round, the music continues playing, so throughout the potentially 3 rounds you fight, you get to hear the whole music track, and I love the music to the original Toshinden. Toshinden 2 also had absolutely excellent music, but at the end of each bout, the music resets to the beginning of the track, so unless you really take your time with the fight, you're not going to listen to the entire track, which is a little disappointing. As I say, later games in the series, at least on PlayStation, did exactly the same thing, which I found really annoying. Toshinden 2 wasn't massively well received, and the main problem with that was, again, you had things like Tekken 2 coming out, Soul Edge was on its way, so it was redundant by the time it came into PAL Shores, which was really disappointing, but no, as a fan of the series, I really enjoyed it, and again put a lot of time into playing it with friends. Battle Arena Toshinden 2 was converted to the Saturn as Battle Arena Toshinden URA, which apparently stands for Ultimate Revenge Attack. Fantastic. It's, again, a redundant conversion. By this point, I think Saturn owners were looking forward to Fighters Megamix. It adds a new character in the name of Ron, but it really does nothing else apart from add that character. There was also a PC version of Toshinden 2, which, yeah, ran with 3D card support, so looked nice, I suppose. Again, not a massive market for it on the PC, I'd say. There was also another version of Battle Arena Toshinden 2 called Battle Arena Toshinden 2 Plus for the PlayStation, which, looking through, I have absolutely no idea what it managed to add to the formula. I really don't understand it, but hey, it was there. Slightly enhanced graphics maybe, the character models got more detail to them, but beside that, it's essentially the same game. There may be a glaring difference I'm missing here, but on my quick play of it, it wasn't really visible to me. For some reason, after Toshinden 2 was released, they decided to release a kids version. Sega had already released Virtua Fighter Kids at this point, so Toshinden did the same thing with a game called Ni Toshinden, which is essentially big-headed, small-bodied characters, and it's really hard to play because of the big heads and small arms. There's no real reach to them. It's just strange and a very odd thing to release. The series sort of stagnated after that. There was a Game Boy version, which was fairly standard Game Boy 2D fare. Obviously it wasn't going to be in 3D. It's nice, it's got little 8-bit renditions of the music, it's got most of the characters in it from the first game, and amusingly, even though it's on a 2D plane, you can bring somebody out. Also in 1996, there was an anime rendition of Toshinden. I've had a quick skim through on YouTube. It didn't look very interesting at all. Animes of fighting games seem to be very hard to pull off because you've got so many characters to focus on, and this was no exception, and it, to be honest, looked pretty boring, and the animation style wasn't particularly good either, but somebody might like it out there, I suppose. The next time we saw the series was Battle Arena Toshinden 3. This was an exclusive on PlayStation, and it changed the formula up a little bit. You had a selection of characters. There was ones to unlock as well, as a few of the favourites, a few new ones. And one thing that bugged me about this was they put the status bar with the energy levels at the bottom in a great big block, which really annoyed me. Aside from that, graphical improvements. But still, at this point in the PlayStation's life, again, a very redundant game. There'd been things like Bloody Roar, I think Bloody War 2 had even come out at this point. Tekken 3 against Soul Edge. There were so many PlayStation fighting games at this point, this just got lost. And it didn't help that because in the UK it was released as a Blockbuster exclusive, so it made it hard to actually get. I managed to pick up a US copy on import, really looking forward to playing it, and then found out I was actually really disappointed with it. And this is really where I lost interest in the series. Between the launch of Part 3 and the upcoming Part 4, there were a couple of side spin-off games. There was a card battle game which was completely in Japanese, which is completely unintelligible to Western audiences. And it seems to be some sort of actual board game where you roll virtual dice and move a number of spaces to do something, and you're given cards. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on with this, but hey, I had a look at it. And also a puzzle game, which is your standard columns connect 3 sort of head-to-head battle thing with some nice graphics and again the original soundtrack from the first game, which was always appreciated. I'm not big on puzzle games, but hey, this one looks quite nice. Battle Arena Toshinden 4 was released towards the end of the PlayStation's life and changed things up because you fight in teams of 3. So rather than picking an individual character, you picked a team of characters from 3 predetermined ones. But unlike Capcom vs fighting games and King of Fighters, you don't get to swap them in and out. It's just when you choose your starting one, and then when they've gone you pick the next one in the list. I mean, it works nicely enough, but a lot of the original characters are missing. The status bar is at the bottom again. It was pretty obscure. It was released, I think, direct to budget almost in this country. I know it was a budget release and that's what I picked up. It doesn't feel like Toshinden. By this point, the franchise had pretty much died a death. I think Takara and Tamsoft had realised exactly how redundant it was, and the 3D fighting game bubble had burst. Namco and Sega pretty much cornered the market on the decent ones, and anybody else was sort of left behind. On a side note, there's a game called D-xhird, I can't pronounce that, a similar sort of fighting game also made by Takara and Tamsoft. Plays like Toshinden, and EG is a guest character in it, so here's some footage of that. I wasn't that impressed with it, but then again, I've just been playing Toshinden games for the last 4 hours. Forward wind to the new millennium. There's a Toshinden game on the Wii. It was released in 2009. Now this was not made by Tamsoft. It was developed by Dream Factory, the people who made Bouncer for the PlayStation 2. It's not a straight fighting game in the same way as the others are. The rolling in and out of the arena has been replaced with a free running sort of movement like Power Stone or that stupid Castlevania game on the way, and as a result it doesn't play like Toshinden at all. In fact, while playing it, it was very, very confusing. Almost to the point where I didn't really know what was going on, and I was a bit disappointed. I actually went out and bought this for this video. But interesting to see that it exists. Can't really recommend playing it, but you know, if you've really got to have a look for it, it's out there somewhere. I'm sure you people with modded Wii's know how to do stuff. So there we have it. Battle Arena Toshinden. A redundant franchise started off by showing off the PlayStation's 3D talent via a fighting game was a good move, but the series didn't seem to evolve at all and got left behind very quickly and then ultimately forgotten and discarded. But do you have any memories of this series? If you do, comment below.
Yeah, subscribe or naff off!